Hello, I'm Eagle Gardens 1 on Instagram, and this is fucking talking shit with Eagle, episode 585. Hopefully, you've had a great Friday. Coming back from the episode earlier with Urban Remo. I got another great guest for you this evening. Journey of a Grower, man. If anybody's name ever fit that this show, it's Journey of a Grower. How you doing this evening? You want to tell us how you where we can find you?
I'm doing well, man. You can catch me on Journey of a Grower. You can also follow my other business page at Willow Tree Farm _, where we I just kind of started that page, starting to try and put a little bit more energy into putting a lot of our products and stuff onto, like, behind a name and a face. Journey's really great, but it's been more of like a personal journey, and Willow Tree is kind of like the summation of that. It's the kind of everything I've put together um, and everything I'm working on. So, am I muted? I think we may be froze.
No, I could hear you. No, I can hear you. Uh,
Yeah, you're
it's
coming back
just a
in.
little choppy, a little bit rough on the bandwidth, I guess. So, yeah, I'm hoping to get to know a little bit of the journey of a grower side of things. First, what are you smoking tonight?
Right now I'm smoking mixture. I'm smoking some Grandy Guava mixed with some Acai mints. Grandy Guava is a cut that I sourced from Grandy Flora Genetics, and the Acai mints is a newer release of Acai Gelato crossed with Fishman's 11 from Sea Junkie. So we were excited to have those cuts this last year, and we were able to get them pretty quick into the beds early on in the winter. So I think that was like our fifth or sixth, somewhere along the fifth or sixth deal we were able to pull off last year. The Grandy Guava is really great. It's like I always kind of describe it as an East Coast GDP. It's just got those, all those terpenes that are really reminiscent of Oakland. And it's such a beautiful plant to grow. I've really enjoyed having her around. I think we're on quite a bit of lag. Not even because y'all are pretty far away.
Yeah, it's real bad. Is there any chance I could get you to sign back in, drop out, and sign back in? Sometimes it helps a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, let me hop in. Oh, there it is.
Thank you. What a bummer. I hate when great episodes start out like this. Thank you for being patient, Journey of a Grower. Hopefully, you guys can see me, hear me. Hopefully, it isn't just my internet. See if he comes back in, get a little bit of a better connection there. Worst comes to worst, might have to My video was choppy. Thank you. Thank you very much, loyalty. Let's see, and only one of my Wi-Fi's is showing up here. It's really nothing I can free up here either.
Bam, bam. The audio is good on Wi-Fi, or should I do dial-in?
No, I can hear you now. Basically, I was reading chat while you're gone. They said you're more stable. It seems to be me that's the one freezing up.
Okay, cool.
Worst case, I may have to shut my video off, but we'll see where it goes. I'm sorry. Usually it isn't this bad.
You're good, dude.
So usually we start this off right from the beginning. You want to tell me when cannabis entered your life, either the first time you come across the plant or the first time you smoked cannabis?
Cannabis entered my life when I was about 7 years old. I had a cousin that was really, really into skateboarding, and I looked up to them a lot, and I smelled it from underneath a door. And when they left, I snagged right back in there, man. And that was my first interaction with cannabis. My next interaction with cannabis came um, just a few years later. I had actually got into distribution when I was in elementary school. You know, I had overheard one of my cousins talking to a friend of his, and the business proposition, you know, of being able to make some money, like, had gotten me interested. And so, you know, I started comparing oregano to cannabis, and I was like, you know, third or fourth grade, trying to flip sacks, and that kind of got me a little bit onto the idea of being around it. I first experienced cannabis plants when I was about 12, man. And, you know, I used to ride bicycles a lot with my friends around town, and I ran into a couple of older guys that grew them in their backyards. And that was kind of what made the connection for me between, you know, the product and the plant. And that was like my first real interaction with the cannabis plant itself. And once that connection kind of happened, I think that naturally I saw that like a path of independence, and it opened doors, you know, in my head to sort of look at things a little bit more tangibly. You know, what could I put together for myself? And so I hadn't really considered it as a trade until I was really put around it in context like that. And then and that was when I was about, you know, just between 12 and 13. And I actually got to be around plants being produced. And I had a short period of time when, you know, I wasn't really around a whole lot of people. And so I was able to, what am I beating around the bush? I didn't really have parents, man. So I could just do whatever the hell I wanted to. You know, I had a lot of time to just like be around stuff and practice. And so I spent probably from 12 to 15, you know, practicing with some friends, about 12 to 14. And then I got in some trouble, and I moved to a family's house out here in the West Coast. And that was my first commercial experience with cannabis. And I got into it, you know, as more or less as like a punishment. Like, I was working farms because I was getting in a lot of trouble. And I didn't spend too much time out, man. I came back and I had an opportunity to move with my grandparents into a better school and a better environment. And I kind of took the opportunity to be around family. When I did that, I was still caught up in a lot of the habits, you know, of cultivating. And I still had seeds, I still had moms, I still had things that I knew that I couldn't really let go of. So I maintained the hobby for the better part of probably like 4 years out there until I got out of high school. And then once I graduated high school, you know, I started doing it, I would say, a bit more, you know, focused. You know, I had a definite intention in what I wanted to do and how I wanted to approach it. And so I started focusing on system design and how to implement things into smaller spaces, and sort of getting into cycles and um, implementing, you know, I can't even say I was implementing some of the stuff that I learned when I was younger, because I learned a lot of stuff about soil when I was younger, and I learned about commercial irrigation, but I didn't have any real applied practice when it came down to hydroponics. And so it was a real experience for me, like, coming into it. And so when I graduated high school, I ventured out to South Texas, and I ran into a couple of cultivators out there, and I was inspired with some of the systems and the designs that they had had. And so I started implementing them, and I made a couple of friends and started working in the hydroponic equipment distribution industry. And that was really where I was able to start making connections to bigger projects that I could, like, make the dots of the stuff that I learned when I was younger connect. And you know, I think that was really where a lot of my experience, like my real applied experience, like, started, was, you know, being able to interact with other cultivators, not just in a system, but as a system, and being able to identify the weaknesses in those systems and mitigate them with design, and, you know, sort of practice in that, and really dwell in that ether of, like, creativity that cannabis is. It not just inspires, but it preserves. And so, like, I spent a long time, like, just trying to sustain as a cultivator in a lot of different environments, which I'm sure that, you know, a lot of other cultivators have been through, where you know, you know, during prohibition, you depend a lot on principle and community, as opposed to you know, more developed, like, you know, intact systems as they are now, you know, hiring, you know, different people who are listed and, you know, based off of their accreditations. Everything is very, like, word of mouth, and really just about commitment. You know, how willing are you? How willing, are you gonna fucking show up? You know, are you gonna be there? And so I traveled, man. You know, just after high school, and I really started taking this stuff seriously. Um, I got really fucking interested in, not, you know, in genetics, but not necessarily in, like, you know, I wasn't like, I mean, I guess I was like that. There was a lot of different beans and stuff that I had, you know, natural genetics that I was utilizing, that I wanted to test out in different environments. And so I ended up actually jumping on planes and going to different geographies and different parts of the world, just sort of experimenting and applying genetics and testing different techniques as to, you know, how they relate to cannabis. Um, and so I really had an opportunity, man, you know, without having a whole lot of people around, you know, to tie me down. I was able to just sort of jump in and out, and still maintain my career, and be creative with the approaches that I want to make. Soon after South Texas, um, man, you know, it was Austin. No, Austin was after. It was Oklahoma. You know, I had taken a plane to the Northeast. We jumped a boat, um, and we did some cultivation out in the Northeast. Took them down to the Everglades, and we did some stuff over there. And then I ended up in Louisiana. A friend of mine had some family out in Louisiana, and I met some friends out there later on that introduced me to just some weird shit, man. Just some, like, you know, I don't even know how to really describe that, man. They just do a lot of stuff differently, you know. The environment out there is a lot more moist. Um, And I didn't really get, you don't really get like commercial applications. You get kind of like the tradesman, you know, like the hobbyist kind of perspectives, because there's just not like a whole lot of, not in my experience. I wasn't able to interact with a whole lot of commercial size infrastructure. I Shortly after coming back, man, dude, shortly after coming back over to, I want to say I went back to Houston. I went back to South Texas, and then we had an opportunity to acquire some land in the High Rockies. And I had always wanted to test out Afghan variations at altitude. And so I fucking split, dog. I like, you know, I saw the opportunity for what it was. I went, you know, all the way back out to wilderness, and I started running moms. I started popping beans. I met up with some guys out in Denver that were doing some bigger stuff, and um, you know, there was like those dudes with Denver High Times magazine, and these dudes got like, you know, shit tons of dispensaries and stuff like that, and it was a lot of fun collaborating with those guys. But I'm more of like a, like, do it, you know, go out there and like do it. And I really like kind of do it. And I really wanted to see what these plants would do out in this environment. And so I spent 4 seasons in the High Rockies wilderness in just outside of Alma, Colorado. And then after that, I want to say I went back out south, and then we went to out to Arizona, and then up north to Southern Oregon. And that was kind of like the beginning of where, you know, the last, you know, 5, maybe like 7 years have been. You know, I've been out here for a few seasons. And I was, you know, up in Southern Oregon doing a few projects out there, and I developed some startups. And when I met the guys with those companies, they introduced me to some of their partners out south, and I was able to acquire land out here and start doing my own projects. And so, you know, I've kind of just been all over, man. I've just kind of followed, you know, every season, everything always changes. You know, it's always like different plants and stuff like that. And as those years progress, you know, fucking 15 years ago, that was just kind of how it happened. Like the genetics and stuff that I ran into inspired me that way. And I would go this way and I would go that way, and just sort of like plot in all these different places and just see what they were worth. You know what I'm saying? Like there were so many times that like I I remember dumb shit. Like I would take moms to beaches and just to see, you know, what the impact would be. And something so foolish could turn into such a great opportunity. Because like even those were like, you know, I'd take plants out to the beaches and shit, and there would be like homeless guys out there that just like, you know, they're going up and down the thing, and I'm like, what are these guys doing? Like, what are these guys doing here? And then I meet these cats, you know, coming back, and they're pulling leaves down off of the trees and like hand making roses and just hustling, dude, and just hustling. And I was like, that is fucking, let's trade, you know, like let's trade. And those kind of opportunities, you know, where you can like apple seed in these like little bit of ways. Um, even moments like that, you know what I mean, have inspired, you know, different types of projects for me, where, you know, I kind of test the waters and see what that type of farming looks like. You know what I mean? What does it look like if I take my leftovers and apply it to a community of people who really don't have anything? You know what I mean? Like, and what are the results with that consistently? You know what I mean? Like, how does that come back? And so like, you know, tiny questions like that, man, like I can spend time on. Like I have the product and the ability to produce stuff to like kind of like, you know, go around and test it. So I don't know. I kind of approach it a little bit differently, man. Like I really love working with these plants. Like I really love working with these plants, and every opportunity that they provide me that I can take, I sort of try and take. And I'd love to, I'd love for it to be like, I made this plan and this plan, and often it was like that. But there's some times where like, a grow goes south and something happens and you just make a call and you make a move, you know what I mean? And you make a decision, either you're gonna quit or you're gonna commit, and I am like committed. I'll travel, I'll go somewhere new if I have to. And I have, like in places like that. There's kind of challenges that you face in all these different environments. Sometimes it's environmental, sometimes it's, platonic, sometimes it's fucking civil, dog. Sometimes they're coming, you know?
Dig it, man. If you don't mind the term, it sounds like a story of a passionate cannabis gypsy, to be honest with you. So what let's put some of the strains with some of the places or some of the whims. Where did it start with what strain and where did it take you next?
So for me, I had the first couple of plants that I had experienced out here were landrace variations. I had some friends that were literally doing open pollination in fields for different landrace species, and so I wasn't how do you say, like, inept. I wasn't like really like up to it. I didn't really like catch on with the strains in the early days. And so I worked with land races early on. And I really applied a lot of those land races depending on where I went. So I go to locals and sort of see what different varieties that they would have. It always changes. Out here, it's a lot of OGs. It was like especially up towards Northern California and Southern Oregon. I got the opportunity to work with a lot of OGs, a lot of like Cali Orange variations. I spent a a better part of, I don't even know, dude. I worked with that plant for like 6 fucking years. And then I worked with Grape Ape for a few years and up in Denver with some Afgu variations that I was testing. And I tested a bunch of the NL5 variations up in the High Rockies along with the Afgus. And dude, this was like Cincy Star days. This was like, I want to say it was like was it post Kim Dog? It might have been during Kim Dog. Dude, when you get out of the country, like the shit completely changes. It's like just, well, I mean, it also depends where you go, because you go up north, my experience was like, it got more hybridized, and especially like lately, like most recently I was trying to find some Cali Bud variations, and I actually had to go like up into Canada. I had to find some dude with Nirvana shop because they were collecting, they had Cali Bud. They still have a bunch of them, dude. I was looking at their fucking list, and I'd been trying to find it, because I've been looking for some better variations, and they have a good big bud that I had sourced from them, and so I was trying to find like an actual original. So it kind of changed. Oh, and the Tangies. And then out towards like out south, it was a lot of skunk variations. I remember working with Trainwreck a bunch. I'm not a breeder. I'm not like I've never done breeding commercially. I've always considered breeding, like, I put it up on like a pedestal, man. I don't really know why. I just kind of think of it like, if I want to do breeding, I want to do it like open pollination, like the right way. I don't know how I see it like that, but I just haven't really spent the time. So I've always taken other people's, cuts or beans and stuff that they have. I run selections. I apply them to the environment, see how they do, and then run that bitch, dude. And if they pollinate, I'll take the beans and I'll pop them, the next year and kind of see who does what. you know, closer to it. But in terms of breeding, I just like, I don't know. I guess I just kind of like feel like if I have the space, like I said, you know, if I have the space, I commit the time and the energy because I got beans, you know what I'm saying? I got hella beans, but I just kind of keep up with the times, dude. Like if something comes out, like, you know, they start releasing stuff, I'll grab them up and I'll start popping them. You know, like the newer crosses, and I try and keep them relevant. You know what I mean? Especially nowadays, like, you know, it's a lot about, you know, maintaining that relevance. It's so like diluted too, because you know, it's easy to get mixed up with a lot of the, you know, what we know as like core street knowledge, you know what I mean? Like all this stuff like we know that makes this culture go around is being really challenged like by social media. I guess everything is, you know what I mean? But the way that we interact with cannabis, the way that the culture interacts with technology, it's really kind of change, you know, it's changing genetics, you know, in a really strong way. So that's kind of what led me on to finding some of the older stuff that I was working with, like the TNGs and the fucking Cali orange stuff. I worked a bunch with some white rhinos and white widows, fucking 48s, or 47s back then. Fuck, dude. I feel like you asked me a song name. You know what I mean? Like, what song do you want to listen to? It's just like all the music in my head just like goes away. um, there's some bangers we got to work with. The mangoes. Bubblicious was something that I worked with for a fucking long time, dude. That was a plant that I loved. I had that one, a cut of that for about 12 years that I worked with in all different types of places. And it was just, you know, you get that plant that you do well with. And that's one of those plants for me that you know, I can pop that bitch anywhere. And then I know that it's going to do well for me in whatever environment that I'm going to put up for it. So yeah, genetics for me, man. A lot of land races. I got a bunch of stuff from some Cuban dudes back in the day, and they would bring me seeds. They would like take them on a boat, get them over to Florida, steal gas, and get them to Texas, and then they would just drop cuts on me, and I would have cuts and beans and a bunch of stuff that I could test from them, and you know, just collecting different varieties and stuff and popping shit. I just got a bunch of well, I guess it was like a couple months ago. I just got some fucking 1973 open pollinated train wrecks. So I'm about to get started on those when I get the new property going, and we're popping some gas faces, blueberry octanes, and king diesels, a bunch of compound genetics, a bunch of seed junkie stuff, as well as what the hell is the name of this dude's? Dynasty? It's not Dynasty. What's the other name of those other packs that in there? Yeah, I'm blanking too. I'm about to pop a whole bunch of new stuff for this other one, dude. This season's coming up, but I'm running cuts right now. So everything that I'm running is all. I got, let's see here. These are some compound variations. This is a Docilata number 8. And then let's see over here who we got. This is a Marshmallow OG. This one's also from Compound. This one's a Larry's Unicorn. I've got like a little over 70 something moms in here. And then I keep them everything in stages. So I've got, you know, a lot of stuff in clones. I've got a lot of stuff in moms. This is the newer release from Seed Junkie. This is Animal Mints BX1 crossed with Ice Cream Cake. And so I just run them, man. Whatever they fucking, oh gosh, I'm stuck on a bucket. whatever they have, if they've shown, you know what I mean, if the test results have kind of proved themselves, then I'll take them and I'll put them through natural systems and see if I can beat the results. And that's kind of what I've been doing lately, dude. So I just take cuts and see what their results are and see if I can fucking beat them.
So what's been your most challenging environment? Sounds like you've been around and grown in a few places. So what's been the most challenging environment so far?
Dude, out south, Louisiana super sucked. It was really hard. You know, challenging. It was challenging with the, you know, maintaining VPD. It was the bugs were like relentless. Um, you know, if you have a proper IPM system and stuff set up, you're pretty straight. But you're not just battling bugs. You know what I'm saying? Like you battle a whole lot of other shit, and some of that shit is emotional. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of pressure out there. Like, you know, when you're popping up on a property and you're just getting started, you're building up capital, whatever. Maybe you're in a new place. You got to have a system. You know what I mean? Like you've got to, you know, for me, I like to come in with flowers. You know, I like to come in and start building up capital. And I always have a pocket system. So I got a 10x10, a 4x8, two 4x8s, 2x4, and a 2x3 that anywhere I land can make me 10 grand. Boom. 8 weeks, 10 grand. That's my capital. If somebody fucking jacks my ass tonight, I have my tents that can make me some money in a few weeks. And if my life is reset, then it's reset. Then I'll, you know what I'm saying? Then at least I have, you know, some work, and I've got an ability in the soil to like make something happen. But yeah, Florida was challenging, especially for that. But I would definitely say the fucking, you know, the swamps were difficult. The mountains are fun, dude. You know, the mountains are a lot of fun. I actually there was this okay, so out in the high Rockies, like 100 years ago, they used to mine a lot of silver. You know, they a lot of the so there's a lot of mines that are still up there in the high Rockies up at altitude, and they mined a shit tons of silver, but they left a bunch of gold and they left a bunch of other minerals. So cats go out there and they prospect all the time. And I used to go back there and just like hike, dog. Like I would just go hiking. I would go back. I think, you know, I'd go back. The farthest back I got back was like 25, 26 miles, something like that in the wilderness. But when you're on foot, you got to like time it. You know what I'm saying? So like if you go out really far, you got to know how long like it took you, know what I'm saying, and like go back. And I was like a city kid, dog. I did not know this shit. There's probably some people that are like, duh, you know, you're out there camping. But I came from Houston and I moved to, you know, the wilderness, dude, like to try this stuff. And I really just wanted to get in touch with that. And so I go up to altitude and I started hitting up different shafts. And I found a couple of caves out there where they left these massive generators. And so I took the generators, and I know electrical just from like setting up shit, you know, different grows and stuff. And so I rewired up the generators and ran them. And I didn't know later that there was like some, you know, you got to be careful with methane and you know, ventilation inside of these things. But you know, I was really surprised because like the same shafts that I rewired, and I took some plants up there into them and started fucking around in these caves. It was out in BFE, you know what I'm saying? Nobody was out there, and I'd never done anything inside of a cave, so I just like, you know, I wired that hoe up and ran it. And literally while I was out there, I went over to these cabins that were like at a town. It's like, I don't know how to describe that. Like I climbed up this side of the mountain and then on this side of the base of the mountain, you know, towards me that way is like a township. And it was an abandoned town, but some growers had gone out there and they left some T5s and there were shelves like set up with cloters and shit. And so I fucking ripped the wires out of that thing. And I got a couple of T5s that were still good, but it was still cool to see that, like, you know, out in BFE, fucking however many years later, you know, I stumbled onto the same place, had the same idea. But Yeah, that was. I thought it would be a lot more challenging at altitude, but it was just gorgeous. I mean, like it took me a long time to figure out why natural farming was so special. And that was one of those moments for me, was like watching the plants. Like I had seen Afghan varieties. I'd seen them in, out south. I'd seen them growing up north. I had done this plant in a few different places. And then I didn't, I say this because I didn't have the cut, and then I got the cut back from the guy that gave it to me. So it was supposed to be the same cut, and I ran those cuts up there, and it was like the difference was just like night and day, dog. Like, I mean, the cannabinoid profiles, the effects. Like, I have serious anxiety. Like, I've done this for a long time. I've been shot multiple times. I've been stabbed more times than that. Like, I've done this my whole life. I have fucking anxiety, dog. And that plant, like, the natural effects that they have are just immeasurable, like immeasurable. And it's you try and for me when I was into hydroponic equipment distribution, like I tried everything, dude. I went through so many different fucking bottles. I went through everything that would come out. I would snatch that shit up. I mean, anything. They would bring in samples and I would run them before anybody else got to go home, and I would even do different hydro demos and stuff in the store. As long as if anywhere that I could run those newts, I was going to run those nutrients. Guerrilla spots all around the town and stuff like that in different people's joints, wherever the hell I could run them. But there's nothing that compares. There's nothing that compares to natural systems. There's just nothing that compares, man. The product is, I think really like the saving factor. I think that's kind of where we're at. And personally, I think that's where we're at in the industry. I think that there's a lot of super big producers, and a lot of people are really scared that they're going to get pushed out of the industry and they don't really know where their spot is. But I just don't see it like that, man. Like, dude, it really is all about the effect, man. Like I have customers all the time that they will, they'll smoke indoor or whatever fucking dispo stuff that they're getting, whatever. I can't even say dispo because there's all kind of organic forms of dispos too. And they'll say, this thing was cool, man, but then I smoked this stuff afterwards and I'm fucking spaced. You know what I mean? Like I'm gone. And for fucking dude, for like ever, I was like, that's enough. That's enough for me. I get it. That is better. But then once we started taking stuff to the lab and really seeing like what some of these guys are producing, like I said, really high end cuts from top of the line breeders and the test results that they're getting. And then we publish our results and it's the same cut, but far fuller spectrums on on cannabinoid profiles, far higher THC profiles. I want to say the average on those were like 1 to 3%, and some of the other ones that we had tested were up to like 6 to 9%. And so the results, I mean, I was like, bam, it's on paper, and so I think that has a lot to do with it. I think it's about playing that game, maintaining your, building up your brand and really having a solid product and allowing plants to do to do their thing is the thing, man. Like that's like the name of the game, you know what I'm saying? And I think it in if it's ever important, like it's really important now, especially with how big the cannabis industry is getting, man. Like we are having some serious effects on stuff.
So I was curious, as somebody says they have anxiety and so a little bit PTSD. As far as that goes, which is better in your opinion? Cannabis as a medicine or cultivation for the anxiety and PTSD? Which you find to be,
Cultivation.
yeah, that's awesome.
For me, it's a lot about independence. It's a lot about, I'm going to get all Texas here. It's a lot about freedom. It's a lot about my ability to choose what I want to do. And that's something that the High Rockies taught me was I got the opportunity to wake up every day and ask myself, what do I want to do? And not what I have to do. And that was cathartic. I mean, it was like, suddenly the cannabinoids in my body like reacted with this opportunity, and the creativity just sort of flowed out of me. And I've always tried to like inspire that and like maintain that. And they say it keeps you youthful, you know. But I will definitely say that that kind of bounces us back to the way that technology is influencing breeding. When we focus a lot on higher, and we'll just sort of keep it on a classic reference. When we focus on breeding for THC, we limit the cannabinoid profiles that are available to us. But on the other side of that, we also limit the terpene profiles if we sort of follow the sway of like the industry. And there's benefits to that. Like you can literally use that as a tool, dog. Like, there are some seasons where back to back, I will observe what my market is consuming mostly, and then I will bankroll that in the next crop. They're going to want the exact opposite. If they want fruit this one, the next one they're going to want gas. And if they want gas this one and they just had fruit, they're looking for the Lottos, or they're looking for like your Jack Herrera. They want pinene. They're gonna, and if you kind of like get a feel, you know what I mean, for your system, they start breeding for that. And so, that's kind of like, why I guess it's kind of part of why I didn't really get into breeding, is just because there's just so much to it. There's just so many plants out there, and there's so many doors to open, and I'm so focused on just like the process itself. There's just like everything about it like fascinates me, man. Like from the root to the shoot, like it really does fascinate me. I don't know. There's some plants that I see physically people's reaction, like when they see them, and they just become entranced, and they just see that plant. They're like, this is an absolutely beautiful plant. And I'm like, that is my fucking life. Like that moment is like what I like try and like, mitigate every day and like give myself a little taste of. But it is important to have good breeding programs and people around that are doing open pollination with land races, so that we can continue to explore varieties that may not have access to the market. And there's a lot of guys that do that. It's just about finding them and then maintaining that connection. And you can do that. There's some guys that get real, conservative with their clones. You know what I mean? They don't want to give them out like that. And I mean, it's fair. You can't really blame them. There's only a couple of things that we do in this industry that really make us unique and apart from everybody else. And I don't think it's about dominating the industry. I think it's about collaborating, and sustaining as farmers and as families. You'd be surprised, dog. I mean, there's some seasons even in between those terpene changes where I say, dude, weed is gonna sell like shit next month, and I'm doing a hothouse full of tomatoes, and I'm going straight to downtown, and I'm fucking selling tomatoes at $7 a pound, and I'm gonna bankroll this greenhouse, and I'm not gonna compete with anybody. I'm gonna smoke my other shit, clear some packs, maybe take a plane somewhere, make some new distributor connections, and make it happen like that. But I work solo, dog. I maintain a few greenhouses, but everything is all designed to spec, so that I can manage everything by myself. I just like, you have it's really hard developing infrastructure, like, partnering and stuff with people. You're really limited to your capital. You know what I mean? Like if you don't have shit tons of dough, you got to make it. You got to take that 10 out of those tents, and you've got to you know, flip those packs, take that 10 from those fucking tents and reinvest it into infrastructure. You know, most of all the farming books I have ever read say in some way that if you're expecting to become rich being a farmer, you're gonna have a really long winter, man. It's all about, you know, finding that balance, and that's kind of what, you know, that question led me to, because that balance is like, how much do I love doing this? Like this month I'm fucking hungry. You know what I mean? Maybe you got kids, you know what I'm saying? And your yield didn't go hot. Somebody chopped your stuff. The bugs came and ripped it down. Like how committed are you? You know, if you're a, how do I want to say that? You know, you really gotta want it. You really gotta like, it's really gotta motivate you. You really got to, you could smoke all the product that you want and it's not gonna settle that PTSD, but participating and having independence and having something that you work for and it gives you back is like, it's just this like human feeling, dude. Like it's just so empowering. Like it's hard to explain. I definitely take farming over consumption any fucking day.
I definitely respect that answer. I think there's a lot to be said. I say it all the time about the cultivation side. I think it's definitely as good, if not better, medicine than the cannabis itself. It's very true what you're saying. I definitely agree. I'm curious. What can you? I love people who like to read. Can you suggest one of your favorite books you've read as far as like farming, agriculture, organics? You want to throw out one of your favorites?
This is Dr. Cho's Global Natural Farming, man. This is a super simple read. It's actually pretty vague, and that's why I like it. Because it like, so much of what he writes about, it really it opens doors for that creativity. You know, it kind of leads you to like ask questions. Well, could I do this? And could I do that? And like, then you try it and then you kind of like figure it out and you realize that none of this shit is like set in stone. You know what I mean? And some of it is, you know what I mean? Some of it is actually stone. So like, you know, it is, but Dr. Cho's Global Natural Farming is an awesome book. It's not super, you know, in depth in terms of, you know, photosynthetic biology and how, you know, the whole line of succession and everything, but it does give you a really great tangible access to natural farming. What is natural farming? You know, natural farming is using indigenous microorganisms and a lot of the stuff that exists all around you as a means to maintain a regenerative, living, sustainable system. So, Dr. Cho, man, natural farming's been around for a minute, dog. Like natural farming goes back to civilizations that sustained on islands from the beginning of time. You know what I'm saying? Like these are people who didn't necessarily have established trades with land people, and so they still have to feed lots of other people. You know, you gotta come up with different systems of farming, and you know, cross culture. This made its way to India. Cross culture again. Dr. Cho goes to India, studies this shit, and then writes this book. And he goes through all different kinds of stuff, dude. IMO collections, different stages of IMO, fermented plant juices and fermented fruit juices. This is what I'm all about right now, dog. This is like my whole shebang. This is my newest, you know, I wouldn't even say newest. It's kind of like what everything's boiled down to. You know, like I said, I've been through a lot of these other processes and systems, and it just like, I mean, just across the board, there's just like, fungally, bacterially, nutritionally, you don't get the same product, you know what I mean, as you get in a natural system. And going back to, participating in farming, so much of gardening, like, when we get all the stuff done, we're like, all right, I pruned everything, like what's next? Like, you get really excited and you want something else to do. And this really gives you that ability. Like, I mean, you can actually interact with these microorganisms and create your own fermentations based off of the crops that you're researching and the environment that's around you. And what's really cool about this system is that it provides opportunity for small businesses, for small farmers to expand, because you're creating unique products based off of the environment where you live. And that's something that I can't just take off of where you're at. I have to, source from you and your community. And so I would say right now, that's my shebang, man, is Dr. Cho's Global Natural Farming. If you're into, here's another thing that I'll say. If you're really into wanting to know, the phytochemical analysis of how these things happen, like, what's happening, like underneath the soil, what, when willow tree bark is boiled down and indole 3 butyric acid is synthesized from this solution, like what is IBA3 or IP3A doing? Like what's the whole point? For me, I find it very useful to find open sources of information. And what I mean is, like, I go to labs websites themselves and I look up their SDS, their COAs, and all of the complete analysis of all of the phytochemicals that they have. And sort of, you can really develop a strong base of the names. You get affiliated with everybody in the room. And then when you start rolling around and wrestling with everybody, you sort of get the feel for like what is happening. And if you've already practiced with soil, if you've already practiced with hydroponics, if you've already practiced with gardening, jumping on to those labs websites and just interacting with that open source information, dog, it makes those it makes the lines just like it's just like it makes it all connect, and then when you start to see a lot of these products on the shelves, you start to recognize a lot of these things that you're seeing in these analyses. And I don't know, there's different routes that you can go, and for me, there's just so many books, dude. There's just so many books, and they all kind of say the same shit. And I get it, you know what I mean? Like, you kind of get it. And so for me, it was like, cool story, bro. You know what I mean? Like, that's how the stuff happens. That's how you say gardening works. Like, cool beans. What the fuck are the stuff? You know what I mean? Like, what is the stuff? Look at the fucking stuff. All right, hold up. So I'll start you off with a basic one here, because this one's a fun one. So Phytotech Labs is a really awesome phytochemical company online. And these dudes, their lab, like when you buy phytochemicals from them, let's check it out. Biochemicals, we go through different amino acids, antimicrobials, buffer carbs, solvents, vitamins, nutrients, enzymes. We can go down to the microbiology and get different screening mediums and different agars. I mean, you can get things down to the molecular level, but this is what's cool. Let me show you something. I go over here and I want to know, how, let's see. So I'm going to pull up these things. Hang on, let me go to a phytochem here. We're going to go to the one that we're talking about, indole 3 butyric. Okay, here we are. So I want to know more about indole 3 butyric acid. So I'm going to check these dudes out. I'm going to go to related documents. and then I go down to info. I click on the information sheet, and then it will bring up the entire information for the molecular biology. It'll describe everything, including its application in every field of molecular biology and the sources of all the literature. And so then you can source the literature that we're talking about from these sources. And so instead of like skipping around and like checking out stuff, I just sort of like bounce around on information, dude. I like checking out different labs and seeing what they're working on. And then I call them. And you can imagine me on the phone like, yo, man, what the hell is this solution? Like, and they talk and they dead ass, they talk. They will explain it to you. They'll tell you how to use it, how not to use it, how to store it. If you come at them with problems, hey, I'm seeing this type of coloration in the leaf margins at this time, and okay, well, how do I? And I'm seeing this and I'm seeing that, and they'll sit there on the phone for hours, dude, and explain it all. And there's a lot of labs that are like this. These are people that give a shit, like you and I, that are just sitting there like just synthesizing chems, and then you call interested. They care. Like, it's really cool. Like, and then you can just sit there talking to them. And then what's really cool is this lab is a lab that actually got me into tissue culture a while back. And when I started fucking around with tissue culture, I had no idea. I'd done mushrooms, and so I had a lab already. You know, I was experienced with mycology, and so sterile environments were kind of natural to walk into. And they walked me through everything. Like, they literally walked me through everything. And then I started running tissue cultures. I had successful runs. I had a couple of bad runs in the beginning where you have that learning curve. But, I got solid systems set up. And then you start to and then I started realizing like now it's getting popular and people are charging, up to $10,000 for a tissue culture, $25,000 to take something down to tissue culture and clean it down to its RNA, remove different viruses and stuff like that. And I do that shit in my, in a tent, in my pocket tent. Just keep it rolling, man.
It'd be a nice asset for you if you do ever go towards the breeding there. It would be nice, even now, to start tissue culturing all your strains in case you ever did want to come across, start up some breeding, man. You could just pull out whatever you wanted out of the tube nice and clean and start banging out some awesome strains. Definitely a nice tool to have in the box. Definitely.
Yeah, it works well, dude. I like there's some strains that I've worked with. I want to say there was like a year and a half period that I had a recessed Bubblicious, and I had that Bubblicious. I told you I'd been working with her. She started getting all freaking finicky on me. I took her down to culture, and as soon as I got her back, dude, it was like from seed. I mean, and that was my first oh, I could put you in a time machine. Like, we're going back, and it works. It's effective. I do a couple of lives here and there, and I've had some people ask questions about, well, don't they only use this for sick and diseased plants and stuff like that? But it's not. It's about there's so many different applications, from preservation to fuck, dude, like you're talking about breeding and transportation. Like, there's all different kinds of reasons why you do tissue culture, but it's good practice. I don't want to open these things. I don't go in here without them.
Pretty badass, the clean room. That's badass.
It's like pitch black, but yeah, I keep them everything in rotation. So You know, some of the moms that I'm not using for the next year, I keep them in there in tissue culture for like 3 months. Sometimes I have to switch them. Like a month and a half goes by, and I'll have to like do a new stock solution for it. But it's better than putting them into the room in here where I have the cloners filled. And like today, this is like a light load, dude. Like I just took out all these pots. It is filthy in here because I've been in here hacking away. I got like another 800 clones that I got to go through for some orders out here in NorCal. And I'm not using those moms. I use the moms in the greenhouse. So I beat the dudes to the market for the for clone season. So all the guys that have hot houses and infrastructure up here in NorCal, I can feed their systems. You got to diversify. You know what I mean? If you're going to survive and stuff, you got to take advantage of every piece that this plant can offer you. And for me, it's not just flowers. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to take advantage of even the stuff that he goes. So these are the ones I'm using up back there. They're sleepy right now. What time is it? I got 25 minutes till lights out. So some of them are already passed out. But these are the Grandies. And this is a mixed spectrum greenhouse. So it's sealed, ventilated. You know, it's got an ECS system in it, evaporated cooling system. I'm running 1,000 DEs down the line, down the middles. But we got all the walls roll up. It's also a light depth. So, you know, right now I'm supplementing light and I'm extending the season. And these are a lot of those like in the back are overgrown. These are going to be chopped down about 2 feet. And it's what we call monster cropping or super cropping. But I'll take these down to about here. And all the cuts up here are the ones that are going to be filling those cloners. Look at that sick, juicy K. Yeah. These are some,
good.
This is God Holly's Yahimi S1. This is Seed Junkie, GMO Sherb Crasher, Ice Cream Sherb Cake. This is from Compound X. It's called Tiger Cake. And she hates this fan, dude. She despises
the Tiger King.
Yeah, layer cake crossed with menthol.
I've actually grown out the Tiger King myself. It's nice to see somebody else growing it.
Dude, I hunted, so I actually had to source her from a friend of mine in Southern Oregon. She a few years ago got the seeds at a show, and then like last year decided to pop them. And I hunted. I saw that she had them, and she gave me a cut of every bean in the pack. And so I'm selecting. I just selected from 14 of those, and I'm down to 4 after this run. And then this is these are some testers from some dispensary. What's that dude's name? He owns a few dispensaries out here in NorCal, fucking Hayes and Top Hat and stuff like that. But he's a real cool cat. You know, he does a lot of local pheno hunts. So like pretty much everything that sells at a dispo won't sell on the street fucking like anywhere, like in NorCal. They just have like a different taste in genetics, dude. Like the gelatos and shit like that doesn't fly. You gotta get like the real, you know, Donnie Burger, Tickle Burger, you know, Skunk House genetics and stuff like that does really well up there. More connoisseur flavors. And that's kind of what he's into. He's into that real cool shit. That stuff that's not really like, you know, it ain't got no lotto in it. She's sleepy. You got time, bro. 20 minutes.
Man, that's encouraging to hear there, brother. I can't tell you how excited I am to hear that basically the public, you know, prefers non-hype, you know what I mean, what the dispos are trying to carry. That warms my heart.
Yeah, man, you know, the cultivators it's just a different field, you know. They don't want you know, the hybrid, those types of hybrids and stuff. And last year I spent a good part of the beginning of last outdoor season trying to like mitigate between kind of like a couple of those groups, you know, like a lot of high-end breeders wanted some genetic stuff from NorCal, but they also don't know how to talk to those guys. You know what I'm saying? And so they're like, we want the genetics, but we also can't just straight up ask them because they're going to tell us no. Can you? And so I went around to some farms and I got some cuts for them, but some of them I can't do anything with, like the Larry's Unicorn. I got and they just released that, like Skunk House just released it. So I mean, I'm pretty sure I got to go on that, but like there's another one, Testarossa, it's called Huracan, and it's a cross of a landrace variation called Testarossa, and then the Pope. And I don't know if you remember the Pope, but that's pre-98 Bubba. And it was a legit cut. And so she's a 7-week finisher, fucking just straight gas tank terps. And there was a bunch of dudes up there that said, okay, well, this one isn't gonna go. You know, we don't want this one can go, this one can stay, they can touch this, they don't want that. So it's kind of weird, you know what I mean? There's like different groups of people doing different groups of stuff, but there's still a lot of genetic variety out there. It's just like, you know, I feel like it's in some really small pockets, you know, and it's kind of exciting because as more hobbyist growers like start up, I've noticed that they're really interested in the different shit. You know what I mean?
I agree. I agree. I just want to kind of go back a little bit, touch back to the tissue culture there and genetics. You know, I'm one of the reasons why I'm excited about that is I'm ultimately kind of hoping it'll clear the water a little bit. You know, as we've got more responsible breeders actually kind of holding on to good parental stock, I think that will slow down some of the BXs and you know, other imitations, if you will, floating around the market. You know, there'll be less need to do that if they can, you know, there's more of a guarantee they'll be able to get that strain in the future. Uh
Yeah.
I so I don't know. I'm glad to see you're on that train for multiple
Yeah.
reasons.
Yeah. It's a good opportunity for growers, you know, especially for, you know, you learn pretty early on about maintaining a healthy mother stock, you know, because popping beans and relying on your ability to select all the time isn't the easiest thing to do. And it's a large investment, you know what I mean? Especially as your infrastructure grows, the risk becomes greater. And not just in terms of like, you know, the danger that you're accepting, but the if you make one mistake on a big, you know, on one plant, it's not that big of a deal. You know what I mean? And if you make a mistake on shit tons of plants, like you got a problem. And tissue culture, you know, really gives us that ability to help beginning cultivators and even new facilities that may be running professionally have a successful grow, you know, getting them through and through. I can't tell you if it's not somebody changing out the system design and losing a clone contract because they can't have the facility ready in time, and then the clones get overgrown, and then they don't get rooted into the thing. The guys are like, why isn't this working? And you know, you can produce a lot with a little. You know, in my little spaces and stuff up here, I can feed 4,000 plant farms. You know, you can do a lot with a little, and the success through genetics is like it's a large part of the battle, man. I mean, if it's not your environment, your newts, you know, or the plants themselves, you know, you've got a lot of other factors, you know, working against you, and that's just like the fun of it, you know, working and finding systems to maintain that. But tissue culture has been a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see I'm excited to see it grow for a number of reasons. You know, open source information is another one. I like it being able to access information like that. You find a lot of closed doors too. You'll contact some labs and they'll say that's proprietary information. That's proprietary, my ass.
Oh, I greatly appreciate you showing everybody how to get there too. That is an awesome source for knowledge right there, man. That is gold. It's a little bit of gold there, to be honest with you.
Eat it up, dude. Read. Practice with that kit, and have fun with it, dude. Because seriously, it can open doors and opportunities for people.
So I was wanting to ask this the other day of another guest, and the conversation, much like this, has just been kind of whipped by before I got a chance to ask. So you've grown indoors and you've grown outdoors, and everybody I've heard people say that outdoors is so much better, or can be more better, and I've wondered this factor about that. Of course, you have a lot of pluses for the outdoors, full spectrum of the sun, stresses of the environment. But I think there's one other factor there that's missing, I think, from the indoor to the outdoor, to be honest with you. And I think that is calendar bullshit, to be honest with you. I think indoor, more or less, you know, cultivators are more likely to go by that harvest date. You know what I mean? Fucking, if it's 60 days, 60 days, you know what I mean? Pull it down, she's done. To where outdoors, you're happy for and grateful for every day of extension you can get, and to let it go further and further and more ripen out.
Yeah.
And less likely to go by that calendar date. You know what I mean? You more understand that environment's the control factor here. I think we kind of lose that in when we're thinking about harvest indoors, you know, when we think about that calendar date. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think that could be part of the equation why there's so much difference in flavor and whatnot from indoor to outdoor?
Yeah, that's a good question. So terpene production, it works symbiotically with cannabinoid production. They are defense mechanisms to environmental stresses. And we often are fooled by our eyes in thinking that every stress that the plant is experiencing is one that we can see. There are so many cannabinoids that are produced based off of fungal and bacterial interactions within the root zone. So a lot of these microorganisms don't just exist in the root zone. It's not so linear. They travel in a lot of different ways. You know, they travel in the air, they travel on animals and bugs, they travel on our shoes, on our skin, in our hair. They have a way of moving around. And all these microorganisms play a role in that full spectrum development. And so the reason why we see more full flavor profiles and cannabinoid and effects, you know, from cannabis that's cultivated outdoors is because it's because of those natural interactions. And so that's not to say that you can't produce it indoors, right? Because you can. The problem with pulling soil and doing natural systems indoors for people often becomes pests, the pest management. And it's difficult to mitigate that, because then we automatically as synthetic or as control growers go in there to take care of the problem. But it's easy to misidentify. Most of these problems are fluctuations. You know, like when you start to see hydroponic plants get deficient, you start to question. The first thing that you go to is your pH. and you start looking, okay, well, where's my fluctuation? I mean, I guess first thing you're going to be looking for are your colorations and starting to identify your nutrients. But bam, we start getting into the solution. We're going to observe our basics. You know what I mean? We're going to look at our pH. We're going to look at our concentrations, and we're going to start backtracking here. But it's different in soil. We're not balancing pH. You can, but it's more about a balance between bacterial and fungal dominance. And so when you're seeing bugs, it's because you're leaning more towards this fungal dominant environment, and the bugs are coming in as a process of succession. They're not a problem, they're a feature. You know what I mean? They're coming in to start performing the processes that they are meant to do in these natural systems. So to mitigate that, we control other factors like vapor pressure deficit, like increasing the amount of light that our plants receive, the amount of ventilation that they receive, the atmospheric pressure that they're around. There are ways to encourage and discourage processes, and all of those things have effects on plants. And for me, that's why I landed on mixed spectrum light deprivation. It was because it gives me the ability to avoid those calendar dates. It gives me the ability to sort of like not really worry about the seasons and more worry about timing my cycles. You know what I mean? Timing my plants. I can focus on, I need to get this bed and this bed 2 weeks apart, and then this bed and this bed and this bed, because I'm trimming it by myself. And I also have to, do all the other stuff by myself. I got to fucking, I got to pull the plants down. I've got to fucking, pull all these off. I got to hang them. I got to set that room up. I've got to, do all the other stuff. So it's, there's a lot of other stuff that you got to worry about. But, Shindig, I just lost my train of thought. Hey, that brings me to my next thought. That's a good breeding project, is breeding out forgetfulness from cannabis. We just got to get that put up on this live. Somebody has got to find a way to breed the forgetfulness out so we can just stop having this. But what was I saying? Oh, that's right. Responsiveness. So in my experience, a lot of, even like sulfur and stuff like that, like where, can have effects on terpene profiles in positive ways when applied the right way. Include even insect frass, dude. Like insect frass itself has great effects on terpene profiles, and I think that's indicative of what we're talking about. This isn't. I would love for it to be like, more of a bro science thing, man. But when I started getting my lab results done, it's on paper. You know what I mean? The cannabinoid profiles far outperform indoor cannabis on every level. Even with, and the argument that I always get is, well, we do it with the THC, but these guys are hitting 28 and I'm hitting 35 and running organic, outdoor, mixed spectrum. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't really matter where it's at. It's stacking aminos and perpetuating the process of succession. And that's not this is how it's done. That's just how it works for me, man. And kind of where I try and focus. And so nowadays, I started producing my own line, and I do a lot of the natural farming ferments applied in different ways. And this kind of brings me back to practicing with organics indoors. One of my issues was cover crops. I was really interested in the interaction of exudates between plant species, and I saw benefits in terpene and cannabinoid production with those interactions as well. But my problem was, some of these species they attracted pests more than they were worth in terms of their biodynamic accumulation. So biodynamic accumulator lists are open source lists. You can find them on different university websites, just kind of like how we did on the computer a second ago. And they list out what a cover crop or a plant species absorbs from the nutrients or absorbs from the soil. So crimson, different clovers and stuff like that are really good absorbers of nitrogen, and so on and so forth. Different crops do different things, but you can engineer your cover crop in such a way that when you're doing the fermentations at the end. So in natural farming, what we'll do is instead of tilling all the plants back, I'll remove the top layer. I take all of my leafy greens. Do I have a box over here? I think I just squeezed it. I'll take the whole cover crop itself and I'll mix it with even weights of jaggery, which is a natural form of brown sugar. And after a few days after it ferments, it'll produce a liquid. And I take that liquid, it's super rich in hormones, enzymes, in yeast. It's oh yeah, here's one. This is kind of like a tiny one, but there's a little bit of goo.
It's probably really hard to see because this is such a small little batch, but it's dripping out slowly.
But we can utilize cover crops and their abilities to absorb nutrients out of the soil and propel that process of succession. So instead of waiting on dry amendments to break down naturally and have that interaction, we speed the whole thing up. We break them down into, some of them, you can age it down into alcohols, because they'll go from a fermentation, the base solution, it's a little bit acidic, then they'll turn into an acid, then they'll turn into a vinegar, then they'll turn into an alcohol, and then they get like really fucking strong, dude. Some of them it smells like a fucking like a vodka or something, like when you open it, like it's really strong. And it's just the longer that it sits, the more micronized the elements inside of the solution become. And you can apply this to fruits, you can apply this to cover crops, you can apply this, and you don't have to even grow them. You can utilize the ones that are around you. And that's a lot about what Dr. Cho talks about in Dr. Cho's Global Natural Farming. And that book is a free download too, man. If you go on Google, you type in Dr. Cho's Global Natural Farming, it's 105 pages, 65 of it's actual reading. The rest are fucking pictures on how to do the stuff, and they're like scribbled. And so it's a really great book. But I utilize a lot of those cover crops to maintain our systems. And so I had to get a little bit more complex. I started, there's another dude on that I had interacted with, and he recommended using a soy hydrosolate, and I thought it was interesting, but I'm not really crazy about hydrochloric acid and using that in the synthesis. And so I was looking for other ways to do the hydrolysis on the soybeans, but I didn't have soybeans. So I like, what I do here is I go to local farms, and all the stuff that they don't use, all the produce that they don't use, I take that shit, I ferment it, I turn it into my nutrients, and that's what I use to feed it with it. So all the stuff that's out there, the stuff that you see on my profile on there, the health, that is all totally regenerative, man. I don't, I spend money on some of the emulsifiers and doing, and actually getting like, fucking sugar and, maybe like big bowls or something, like, like basic materials. And that's like really it, dude. Everything else, once you get going into the system, it's all around you, and then it just keeps expanding. So I started experimenting with soybeans and doing a little bit more complex protein. So now we've got our own version of the soybean amino hydrosolates, and then we're doing oxidized lignite. So when it goes into lignite, it's got a little bit more silicon dioxide available once it's been oxidized. So I don't really have to supplement any silicon dioxide or anything like that either. I just keep it really fucking simple, man, and do FPJ, some herbal nutrients. Now, that's a good one too, because a lot of the herbal nutrients, man, like how do you ferment dry stuff, like especially with co-species, like a lot of guys like to do preventative cropping. Well, they'll do like, different herbs and stuff like that, and how well they do to prevent other crops. And some of these things like rosemary, it can prevent other stuff, but spider mites love it, dude. Like, love it. Like, spider mites love rosemary, dog. You brush up against rosemary anywhere, you need to sit there and take a shower before you go around a goddamn plant. Oh, time. You got that?
How come they add it to so many sprays then? You see it in a lot of, pest sprays.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So that's, it's really good because you can. That's a really good question. What I do is I still utilize rosemary. I utilize rosemary, thyme, basil, as well as some some other herbs that I can't have in the beds because of those problems that I've had. But you ferment them in a process that's similar to beer making. And so what I'll do is I'll take let me get this set up. I'll take a jar like this and I'll fill it. This is ice cream sherbet cake. But I'll fill it with about this much dry material. And this is a good example because cannabis is dry itself. So this is a perfect example. Let's imagine that this is our herb, because it is. I would pour beer to about halfway up to here. And this is to jumpstart the inoculation, the fermentation process. Where beer is already in a state of fermentation. So we're just jumpstarting it. We're gonna inoculate the beer with the herb that we're using down here, and then after it soaks in for about a day, I'll start adding sugar till it gets about 3/4 of the way up. When I first started doing these, I thought that sugar had a lot to do with like using molasses and stuff like that, like that's a sweetener, and I thought that's cool, dude. Like, but it's actually about osmotic pressure. The sugar itself creates an osmotic pressure around the plant material, which helps pull all the nutrition and any of the chlorophyll and stuff that's left inside of the plant. All of its benefits are more easily removed with an increased osmotic pressure. So once you have the sugar in, I'll add a bit of vodka, high end, cheap ass vodka, a little bit up. That way it just goes up in how much alcohol, is actually in this. That's just going to jumpstart the whole fermentation process. And then after, every day I come in here and I mix this motherfucker, and after 2 weeks, I'll begin to take my first extraction. And what I'll do is I'll pour off about 25%, 25% of this, and then I'll refill it with vodka again. That little bit is my first collection. Now, let's say that this is rosemary. I can still get the benefits of rosemary's nutritional abilities, its beneficial, its preventative properties, without the organic elements that are in rosemary as it breaks down that make spider mites and other bugs so interested, even if it's not rosemary, even if it's like mustard, you know what I mean? Like aphids love mustard. Like the way that the leaves like curl together, they just like bury themselves in there, and you'll pull the mustard leaves apart, or you'll bite into the mustard leaves and you will find bugs. And so it is there's still ways that you can utilize them. And Dr. Joe, like I said, is vague in how he describes how these herbal nutrients are applied. Hey, the cloners need to get switched. That plug is on a timer, so that thing needs to get swapped until those 2 timers get here. Making it work. Everybody's going to bed right now. So yeah, that was it was a learning curve, dude. A learning curve. Like, I was really nervous on, I'm not gonna lie, I was really nervous on one of those projects because there's a bigger facility and the cover crops. I mean, you risk a lot, you know what I mean? But the exchange is, I mean, I guess you can't say it's unmatched because you don't necessarily, it's not like necessity, you know what I mean? You can get it in different ways, but you feel it in the soil, man. Like when you touch it, like it's just like the way that it holds the way that it breaks down. I mean, I take out of my beds. I'm on like the 7th year on these beds, but after year 2, this happens. You'll take the stalk and you'll literally just, after it's been cut down after like a day or two, and just lift it right out, and microorganisms they've already broken down the root. Like it's almost fucking gone. And then you just whoop, like pull it apart, plant straight back in, and no worries, dude. They're ready to go. But yeah, it's been my experience that, and that's how I landed at mixed spectrum greenhouses. Was it gives me the control of indoor with the expandability of outdoors. You know what I mean? And outdoors is a lot of fun. Outdoors is a lot of fun.
So can you answer me this there? Again, I'm a long time grower, but I'm just kind of getting back in. Before, my idea like growing in soil was obviously the old flip and dump, basically pulling in new soil every time. And I'm now getting back into soil and more mindful organics. I would have to say, trying to think ahead, with the purpose of hopefully, reusing the soil and maybe at some point, possibly beds. So my question is about cover crops in pots like this. Is there enough time for it to be, beneficial, or in my when applying cover crops in my like this in pots, am I more asking for insects, more invasion of trouble? Am I asking for more trouble, or do I see the benefits that quickly? You know what I'm saying? Before I
Yeah,
have to
totally.
mix or reuse.
Yeah, they're definitely worth it. If you're not crazy about the cover crops themselves and you're worried and you have that risk, mulch is a good option. Like wood chips, it has the same effects, and it also has really positive effects on the critters in the soil. Like the earthworms love it, pill bugs love them, ladybugs love them. They can bury themselves up underneath there. Whenever things make contact with it, they hear that vibration a little bit more. In my experience, they hear that vibration a little bit better, and they come up to the soil. Come up to the top of the soil a lot quicker. But it's as long having cover crops and fluctuating with organics is having good understanding of how these bugs operate. Find a good entomologist like Sink Angel on Instagram. He's a great source for great person for open source information. And an entomologist studies bugs, and this guy studies bugs, and he's he studies bugs in their applied field of integrated pest management systems. He's an integrated pest management specialist, and he
Mr. Gates, Matthew Gates. He's been on the show, correct?
Yes, yeah. I really like that guy's work, man. He's
dude. Very smart dude.
Very, very smart guy, man. I respect guys like that a lot. They share that information, and it's so valuable. Like, it's so bad. That guy can walk into a facility and bankroll, saying 2 words, Bavaria Bassiana, like 2 words, he could bankroll that facility. And maintaining systems with living organisms like that, like Bavaria Bassiana, can really help mitigate those things, man. Having, steps where when those critters start to come in, by the time they even get there, they don't really have the opportunity. I don't really like using stuff like ladybugs, and unless they are, engineered species. But I find that just maintaining a good system, man, I get excited with bugs every now and then, dude. I really do. If I see them, I'll come in just like, I'm just ready to go to war. I'm just like ready. I'm like, all right, I get to apply this and this, and they're gonna be dead. But you know, it was fun. Like I there's certain stuff that you kind of start to look out for, man. You know, you start to see ants moving in, and you start to trail them, and you use different mitigation tactics to just like balance that stuff. But all those parts of the system have to be applied with consistency. Like it's just as important as watering your plants, you know, maintaining some type of foliar or applied regimen every 2 days. I mean, some cases, you know, you can go every 3, but I'm at work, dude. Every other night, I'm out there doing something. They can handle it. You know, if you're dead ass scared that the plants, you know, really can't handle it, go half dilute. You know what I mean, and work your way up. But if the plant can't handle it, you don't want to be working around that plant anyway, dude. Move on, because the plant, you so much about finding plants, dude, is working with the plant that you could put to the ringer. Like you want to be able to, you know, she's got to know you just as well as you got to know her. And that's not a, maybe that's too metaphorical, but it really comes down to that relationship between like how you operate in your life and how that plant happens to be able to resist all your bullshit, like, and make it through to the next thing. So I just try and stick with plants that do well. And that's, you know, why I collect so many of these ones that other guys have spent so much time producing. I appreciate that work and the ability that it gives me to have consistent yields and crops that I can trust.
So, will Willow Tree Farms there be a regenerative farm there? Will that be a part of the process?
Will that be a part of what?
Will that be a part of the process, part of the plan, and to be a regenerative farm?
Yeah, absolutely, man. You know, we're on our 7th cycle on this system, and everything I do is full circle. So we've been able to maintain on you know, right now we're in a real tight urban space, but we've got infrastructure to expand into 3 more greenhouses, and we're just looking for more property, man. And I'm real, you know, like I like really unique opportunities to grow in places. And I'm not sure if this is necessarily the time that I want to be so creative. You know, I've worked a long time to be able to expand into this next endeavor. And so maybe high risk ain't it, but we're looking at a few properties that are close by and a couple that are out east, you know, like closer out in Oklahoma. You know, it's an open market and stuff out there, but I've been out here, you know, back and forth for a while, and a lot of what I do and a lot of my community of other cultivators is based out here, so it's kind of hard to get away from, you know, the community. You're like spoiled, you know what I mean? Like with all the genetics and stuff that are out here, it's really hard to just like bounce unless it's you know, a couple hours away or something like that. Southern Oregon ain't bad, but I've grown out in Oklahoma and stuff before, and it's very similar, you know, to out here, but the market opportunities are a little bit better. But I'm pretty competitive, so you know, we're expanding out here and doing some different collaborations with some other guys. So we'll be taking some steps this year to get in front of some other people.
Very nice. I dig that shirt, by the way. I happened to notice when you walk through the darkness there that it as well glowed, which I think is
Yeah.
pretty badass. So yeah, I dig it. So it's kind of funny. I have a very visual mind. You know what I mean? It's when I take up information, when I hear people's stories. And for some reason, man, I've already seen a commercial for like Willow Tree Farms, to be honest with you. In my head when I looked at that shirt and everything. I honestly could see somebody like This is the commercial. As I seen it, like instantly play in my head. By the way, somebody just kind of like looking at a button, kind of looking up in surprise with that "what the fuck" look, on their face, and just the reply being, Willow Tree Farms.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, it's kind of weird, man, because it's so cross culture. For me, there are so many cities that I popped up into, and just like I get giddy, like having new yields and stuff like that, and being able to pop up in new distributors' lives. Like I, a part of my process, like when I'm cultivating, man, is I like to visualize where these things end up, and like I'm so inspired by thinking like these are those moments that we all remember. You know what I mean? Like this nug is going to end up in somebody's like first date, the first time they smoked, like that the worst day they had, and this is like that thing that pushes them, you know what I mean, towards that catharsis. And like it's so cool to imagine how many lives, you know what I mean, that are affected, that are touched, with uh with a wholesome product. And that's kind of like my goal with Willow Tree Farm. Is I want to give people back that kind of independence and reopen a lot of those communities, by kind of pulling away from that, like the established rhythm with the bottles. You know what I mean? And there's so much opportunity for our community in maintaining these living systems. And yeah, man, I'm really stoked about Willow Tree, but it's so weird to like cross culture. Like my whole life, I remember my first experience with carbon filters being to mitigate risk, associated with terpene development and law enforcement in different areas. And I remember, different systems being applied. I mean, just there's so much about our culture, my culture, that's been influenced by prohibition. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of trauma, that I have from experiencing the culture from that side. And so it's weird to like be touching in, you know what I mean? To like be making that step in. And I feel confident, you know what I mean? Like I feel like it's the right thing, it's the right time, but I'm still like, there's still like that grower side of me that's like, keep the tarps down. Like, keep the tarps down, double board those things. I don't trust them, like, but Willow Tree's exciting, man. My one of my Willow Tree kind of came about because one of my first jobs when I was 13 on the field was going out and collecting branches for hormone solutions. And so like I was like this angry kid, just like fuck these trees, like, and I was like, we're boiling branches, like this is ridiculous. And then flash forward 20 years and I'm in a lab synthesizing indole 3 butyric, and I'm like, why am I still working with these branches? Like this willow tree is just, it's around me all the time, like, and I don't know. And then I sort of saw the acronym and I was like, you're gonna be around, man. Willow Tree it is. So that's where I'm at, man. These days I'm out and just getting done.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. So I'm curious, how much do you were talking about how to, stay ahead of the market, basically, or read what would be next. How much does extracts play into that equation?
Right now on the market, it's very prominent. And it's just because of the super saturation of new cultivators. When Colorado opened up on the legal market, there was like a huge land race, dude. I was in the High Rockies when it happened. And I remember at the time we were competing with tourists, like, fucking inheritance bros would come up there and they would offer landlords like $3,000 a month, you know what I mean, instead of with a 1,500 or something like that, and you had to like outbid that and tell them you were going to grow, so you had to pay a little bit more. But oh shit, I'm sorry, what was your question?
I scrolled as well on that.
What was your question?
Oh, how does you were trying to, when you were talking earlier about how to forecast the market or how you try to stay ahead of the market, I was wondering, how does extracts play into that
Oh yeah.
part of the
Yeah,
equation?
right now it's really prominent because, like I said, like when that land race happens, when markets open up, and especially with COVID, dude, like after people lost their jobs, and a lot of those places in the central United States started giving people opportunities to cultivate, they took it, and so there are shit tons of farms opening up in Oklahoma, and it was the same thing in Colorado. And at that time, BHO was the thing, and so BHO popped off, everybody was blowing themselves up, and that's kind of how it was happening. But I think now there's a lot more solventless processes and a lot more infrastructure like available on the streets in terms of closed loop systems and all that. And so I think that, dude, those guys in Oklahoma they have a long learning curve. They've got a good 5-10 years before any of those guys really start producing like memorable crops. I'm not saying guys that like Brandon Rust, legacy farmers that are out there fucking killing the game aren't already doing stuff like, but that doesn't come just by popping up. You know what I mean? That guy, like many of us, can run that system by himself without anybody there. It's just a kindness of and an understanding of how those systems work and being able to maintain them. Like, but I personally, I try and produce flowers that I know that are going to go. And if I'm producing for concentrates, then I like to plot for concentrates. So I like to source from different farms. Like Statefly Farms is a good one right now. They breed specifically for concentrates, and so like I'll find farms like that, breeders like that, and I'll say, hey, what do you have? That are testing at 3% on concentrates, and try and get something that's higher yielding, and I'll grow for that. But that's kind of the opposite of what happens whenever you have a super saturation, which is that you have a lot of growers that produce product that doesn't move. Maybe not because it's not the word, maybe not because it's not the best, but because there's so much product that's available in the market. And so concentrates are cool, but CRC and knowing what you're getting is really important. I dabble. I shouldn't say I dabble. I fuck around. I do concentrates, stuff like that. I just started doing hash rosin and teaching myself how to do that stuff. I've done shatter for a while. I've got commercial systems for that. I've got commercial systems for pressing rosin and doing washes and stuff like that. And that's just like, I got 3 kids, dude. I got 3 kids full time. So, on 1,000 square feet of greenhouse, I'm not selling 100 pounds a year. So I'll wash 20 or 40 of them and, blast some of them and see what they do. Some of them, like if I really like the terps or something like that, I want to try it in different concentrates, and so I'll run it like that. But I'm not like there's been definitely points in my career where I've jumped up to 15,000 plants and like done it myself and really went for it. But these days, man, I like to feed myself. You know what I mean? I just like to grow what I smoke and enough to maintain and progress my family, and that's it, man. I don't really want a huge stake in the industry. I don't want, whatever the fuck that stuff is. I just want to be able to work with this plant for the rest of my life. What the French toast was that?
I find that to be
Oh, it's
very respectful.
sorry.
Respectable, to be honest with you. I find that to be very respectable, to be honest with you. You
I
know,
appreciate it.
the last few nights that I've been talking about just that, you know, the being thankful for cannabis and being able to spend more time with the family unit and being able to hopefully not just for me, but for other people with the legality of cannabis, uh, be able to make it a multi-generational thing, you know, be able
Yeah.
to teach them, you know, my kids are older, so it's easier for me to talk about, you know, my youngest is 18. So to teach him to cultivate is, you know, more socially acceptable. But as I was talking about last night, um why wouldn't you want to encourage the youth to start growing, you know, earlier on, not just cannabis, but, you know, anything. As we talked about it earlier, the positive effects of cultivation. And then once you know, you put the organic side of it, wanting to know what's going on in the soil, being more mindful. I don't care how you look at it. Once you start dipping seriously into organic,
I think we might be breaking up a little. Once we start dabbling seriously into organic. You still there? Yeah, we're still connected. I'll give it a second. We're a bit laggy, y'all. It's all good. There you are.
there you are. Thank you for being so patient, man. The one night I don't go over, the internet can be a shithead.
It's all good, man.
Greatly appreciated. I don't even know where I disappeared at, but yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely think that it'd be a great asset, you know, to pass it on, and a great opportunity to spend more time with the youth. To be honest with you,
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely, man. Yeah, eventually I'd like to expand into youth programs and stuff like that because you know cannabis makes it a lot more fun, especially when you start to see, especially with natural farming techniques. You know, the kids really start; they get to tangibly experience what's happening. You know what I mean? You get to cut the crops down, select them, cut them down, watch the process of fermentation, play with all of the goo, and then you know it doesn't just end there. You know these things are like you know, the fermented plant juices, dude, when they're in the jars, they're so biologically active that like they'll consume all the oxygen that's available in the jar, and the second that you open it again later on, it's like and just starts pouring out because it's so rich. It's just so rich in microbial life. And that stuff is exciting. You know what I mean? Kids, I do it with kids all the time. Like, you know, I set up stands, you know, I'll do nutrition demos and stuff like that, and fermentation demos at markets. And you fucking pop the little jars, dude, and they just lose their shit. You know, they get really excited and it's interactive. And when my first son was born, you know, I had options. You know, I had different trades and stuff like that that I could have chosen from, but it really does give us that like. I mean, I'm with my kids all day. Like my kids are with me all day. I've got a 10-year-old. They're like I mean, you know how public schools are now, dude. These kids are fucking, they're always out of school. All day, every day. They're just all out of school. So the kids always around. And I've got 2 toddlers, and you know, we're able to, I mean, just be around them, man. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. You know what I mean? Like when you get to spend time with your kids like that, dude. Like, you know, I didn't really have that type of space, and you know, now that I'm older and I'm sort of coming into the professional side of this, a lot of that trauma and that insecurity comes to surface. You know what I mean? And you have to learn different ways to mitigate those things because they become challenges, just like the challenges, the environmental factors that you have to go over in your rooms. And those things can break you down and build you up. And for me, working for somebody else and not really having a direction in my life made me a lot more stressed out. But cannabis has definitely, you know, given me that opportunity to, you know, be the father that I want to be and have that time with my family, and move past that. You know what I mean? Like the opportunities that I have now with this business and stuff wouldn't be possible without it. So, um, yeah, we want to, you know, like we were talking in the beginning about farming techniques coming from native islanders and stuff like that. A large part of what I want to do with cannabis production is, as legal markets open up out east, is take a lot of these techniques and do open venues in communities where maybe the legislation is going to be a lot more strict because of the people that it's around, and embolden and enable those people with systems that are going to compete with the man coming in there and fucking up their communities before they even have the opportunity to build themselves back up. And I think where there's a will, there's a way. And, you know, sort of stepping back from that, like, I need to have 1 billion plants, man. I need a yacht. Like, gives me that, like, it continues. I just want to manifest. I want to continue to, like, take care of that creativity, because like being able to go out there and interact with communities like that is like a whole other part of this industry. It's a whole new question to me. You know what I mean? It's cannabis, but on this whole other scale, like communal. You know what I mean? Like how does this affect the state of Georgia? How does this affect the state of South Carolina, where farmers were legislated out of orchards, you know, that are very similar to the ones here, that would do absolutely amazing in with cannabis cultivation. And I'm like inspired by that, man. Like that is like a huge question in my head. Is like, what can we do with this as communities? You know, what's something big that we can accomplish with this, because we know that it's capable of so much. And that's something that I want to pursue, man. This Willow Tree Farm is just a stepping stone for that. You know, if we can build something that people can trust, build something that people can say, you know, this went through, you know, this community building process, and that's why our youth can approach it, and we can have the expectation that they're going to be not just successful, but really interested, you know, and impacted by the information. Because it's not just the consumption of the produce, it's not the consumption of the product, it's the participation. You know, you get participation points for this, and it's not on a sheet of paper. It's like in your fucking blood. It's like in your heart and shit. Like you feel things about it. Like, and it can be life changing. I mean, it was for me.
Well, I agree. I don't know if you can still hear me, but it definitely, I think one of the things cannabis offers medically, recreationally, or be cultivation is quality of life, to be honest with you. It offers an incredible uh, quality of life all the way around. I don't know if I've lost Journey this time. It's the yin and yang. Man, this has been internet troubles and all. This has been a great episode for sure. Yeah, I think his phone died. I seen him trying to plug it in. Nonetheless, man, I've greatly enjoyed this episode. Maybe he'll slide back on his computer real quick to either finish up the episode or possibly say goodbye. Uh, yeah, two for in a row, man. What can you do? uh, Cheers, everybody in chat. Jeff Pollock, martial artist, the Major General 420 Army, Brett Anderson, Wheatus 207, Panda Cat PK. Cheers to you. Nice to see you in chat there. Robert, cheers to you as well. Hopefully, you got my DM earlier today. Voodoo Ultras, cheers to you. Of course, the Major General 420 Army, tons of respect for you, sir. Johnny Candace, how you doing this evening? Hillbilly Herb, Rowdy 420. Who else we got in chat? Man, so jealous of all the folks that were able to go to the Regen Conference today.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries, man. Thank you for coming back. So,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was saying when you kind of fell out there, that's one of the amazing things that about cannabis is that it offers medically, recreationally, or cultivation. It offers an amazing quality of life. I think that's what a lot of us are after. You know, you said earlier that you're not necessarily to jump in large scale and you just wanted to get by, sustain, you know what I mean, live a comfortable life, have a good quality of life. And I think that's what we're all kind of looking for in cannabis, either medically, recreationally, or like I said, cultivating it. And I think it does provide that in all three levels. I think as far as like we were talking about, like teaching the young, like young urban garden or something like that. I think it's beneficial. I'd like to see it go a lot further than that, to be honest with you, because of the cultivation, the great effects you get from it. We know we talked about it earlier as far as like the PTSD and shit like that. They knew back in the 70s that horticulture had such positive effects on the human psyche. And I would like to see it go farther. More youth groups growing. I think we should be pushing it at an earlier age. I think we could be using it for psychological purposes, as we talked about, dealing with anxiety and PTSD. I think it could be also a good tool for just uh, people coming out of prisons and shit like that,
Absolutely.
giving them a second chance on a farm, you know what I mean? Because as we talked about earlier, it does cultivate the person as you cultivate it, and it's especially when you start dipping into the KNF, the Jadam and stuff like as we talked about, man. Those are very mindful procedures, man. I like the way you left it. You talked about when you talked about Master Cho there, how vague he left it. There's a lot of room for mindfulness in there, and the One Straw Revolution. Again, I learned a lot of mindfulness when I read through that book as well. That it's all the KNF, Jadam books and stuff like that. You learn a lot about yourself and your overall stewardship, in society and in the earth, man.
The
It could be a
yeah.
great tool all around, So I'm happy to see cannabis being pushed to the forefront these days. And people like yourself, great people like yourself, pushing the plant, getting other people growing, through clones, genetics, whatever, just passion, teaching. As you said, you mentioned earlier on too, open source. I love the communities, people like yourself, freely handing out and, putting out great information and one other thing I took a lot of value in what you said. It is basically, I'm not preaching my method. I'm just, saying what works for me. And what I took from that is, again, the open source attitude of it all. You can take what I'm telling you, you can, you let it sink in, use it, don't use it, expand on it. You know what I mean? And I think that's the awesome state of cannabis right now. It's great folks like yourself dumping great information into the community.
Yeah, there's been so many times, man, that I've had clients, there's all different types of characters. I've had bullheaded guys that, they'll do the exact opposite of something that you recommend. And I walk into the facility, or the grow, and I see the plants and I'm like, okay, they're growing. I don't know, like they're gonna do it. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna do their thing. And even in my head, I would think to myself, there's no way, then I walk in, the plants are like, I'm still doing it. Like, I'm just like, dang, like I don't really know nothing about you, man. I'm like, you really like, you're resilient as shit. Like, well, what strain, and yeah, it's really cool, man. All the different ways and stuff. It's nothing set in stone, and I think that it's there's a series on Netflix that they put up called Fantastic Fungi. I don't know if you've seen that, but they have these really great visual diagrams. And when I was growing up and I was learning and reading about different mycological systems and how they interact with each other in forest floors. And I was reading about mother tree interactions and how they shift water from different resources, oftentimes miles and miles away from each other. And just through, different fungal interactions and exudate releases, and they can move nutrients from one side to the other. And I was just like, blown away by the plant's ability to cooperate with one another. And in my head, similar to how you operate, like I visualize a lot. And in my head, I just, with all the information that I like put together, I developed these like the images of just the roots and all of these like, webbed interactions. And in my head, I just had this image. And when they came out with that series and they actually have a diagram, like a media, like a 3D, like a video diagram of these fungal webs, and they dive. I mean, it was just so weird seeing it in real life. Like it was like they pulled the image out of my head, and I was like looking at this fungal web on the screen. And I just was like I didn't even have breath. I was like reaching at my partner, like, that's it, like that's what it looks like. That's what I've been telling you about, like that. That thing can move shit from miles and miles away. We can't even see it. And it's just so crazy. And it's what I mean is that when we're all gone, they're still going to be living. They're still going to be doing their thing even without us, guiding them through it. They're going to outlive us, and we're just sort of participating with that process, man. Like, and moving it along. I also want to see,
They were here firsties, right? They
yeah,
want to, help to set the whole fucking wheel in motion. You right?
yeah,
Yeah, they probably will be here after us. You know what I mean? And we have a lot to thank to.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, man. So The next steps for me, this next year, we're doing some collaborations with some local guys, some cigar collabs, we're setting up and expanding into some other greenhouses. So we'll be doing some seed hunts and stuff like that. So if you guys are interested, feel free to check out the website and stuff like that, willowtreefarm21.squarespace.com. All the nutrients and stuff that I make and I use is all on there. I make everything by hand. Everything that I make is grown on the farm, and that's what I use to produce, or I source them locally from other local farms here, and that's what I used to make. Do check out Dr. Cho's Global Natural Farming, and look into some of those open sources and track down that info, man, and expand. You guys can find me at Journeyofagrower. You can also find me at Willow Tree Farm _ and DM me if you guys have any questions or anything you want to continue some of the conversations that we've had. I appreciate you having me on, man.
Man, this has been a super fun night, man. Chad has said a lot of great things about you, as far as your journey, your knowledge. Hoping you'll actually come back and hang out again very soon. Very much, I agree with that as well. Man, I'm almost bummed that we didn't get a chance to dive in more into your nutrient lineup and stuff, but you definitely have led a good base to, them wanting to, that's, I dig people that, are putting products out there, not afraid to put themselves out there. You know what I mean? I would much rather purchase something from somebody that I know grows cannabis, is part of the culture, trying to just, live. You know what I mean? Just trying to
Yeah,
get
man.
by. I have more respect for that, more want to help, more want to buy products like that. And for Marty, what you've talked about, understanding your thoroughness in what you say, would make me interested in buying your product. I know everybody that's watched this tonight, it's probably went the same thing as we all read the situation like, oh, this is coming to an end just when we were getting to, you know what I mean? So
Man.
man, I hope you do come back, man, and come do this another round. Basically, this is how things work around here, brother. So I do the one-on-ones, the spotlights. And it's kind of like an introduction to the greater community, what we do here, the Weed Nerd World type thing. I don't know if you're a follower, a sub cool or not, but definitely trying to carry on that type of tradition of keeping the weed nerds and free knowledge, keeping everybody growing alive. So basically every night I kind of get the guest, and like I told you in the beginning, 11:30 to 4:20 is basically the what I set aside to hear the person's story. And if it doesn't go that long, then I shut things down and I open up with Weed Nerd World. Weed Nerd World is only open up to past guests. That same Zoom link I sent you earlier is always good now, brother. Monday nights is Weed Nerd Worlds. It's a little later start on Monday nights. It's 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Wednesday night we do a West Coast takeover, so it starts at 11:30 for some of the people that don't like to stay up. So you can bank on Mondays and Wednesdays being Weed Nerd World. So if you want to come hang out, hang out with the community, talk more about your products and how we can find you and stuff like that, just talk more, grow, whatever. We'd love to have you, man. Always looking for that open source knowledge and, knowledgeable people to hang out. So hopefully you take me up on that offer, my friend, because like they said, like us, I'm saying to you, it was good meet, good conversation, and honestly a good source of knowledge for advice as well. So come hang out. Some night you get bored, just want to smoke a fatty and just hang out with the community. We'd love to have you. The other thing I'd like to get from you, my friend, before you go is a silly thing I call the soundbite. At some point, I will use this as uh, uh, a commercial for your episode. Go back and check this one out if you missed it, you know, type thing. So basically what I'm looking for, my version would be, hey, this is Eagle and I'm on fucking Talking Shit with Eagle, episode 585. You can put whatever you want before or after that. I'm just grateful to get that much, to be honest with you. I am ready.
I'd be
Anytime
happy
you
to
are.
come back. I'd really be stoked to come back and join you guys. I mean, I appreciate you guys having me. This is Journey of a Grower, joining Eagle on his own journey on episode
585.
585. I really appreciate you guys having me, man. And I'd be happy to come back and share some more information about what we got going on.
Oh yeah. Well, with that being said, thank you guys for watching this episode. Hopefully you'll do the same. Empty your bladder, fill your trays, and we'll be looking for you, or I'll be looking for you in Weed Nerd World. If not, thank you for your time. Do not forget to do something nice for somebody. Random acts of kindness do save lives. I'm a living, breathing example of that. And then one last thank you, my friend, for hanging out tonight. It has been a great night, and man, time's most valuable thing we got, and you gave me a nice hunk of yours tonight. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
See you soon, man.
We are out of here.